Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I am here tonight standing beside my dear husband William's grave in Falmouth Cemetery in Cornwall. I've been reflecting here as I read my diary on some of my time spent in Kilkenny. My father was Henry Louis Bischofsheim, and he was a wealthy London banker. My maternal grandfather, Laser Biderman, he was the court jeweller to the Emperor of Austria. William, the 4th Earl of Desart, and I were married in London in 1881. My father gave me a dowry of £150,000 and he promised me a similar sum on his death. He died in 1908. My only sister, Amelia, she married a knight of Glyn. The warm welcome we received when we arrived in Kilkenny shall never be forgotten. We were greeted at the railway station by a large amount of people. Then we were escorted out to Desart Court in Cuffesgrange. The village was festooned with evergreens and banners. The estate was made up of almost 9,000 acres with a large tenantry. William, my husband, played an active role in introducing the Royal Agricultural Show to Kilkenny in 1884. William also wrote 15 novels. He was also the editor of Vanity Fair magazine in the UK. Sad to say, my husband died in 1898. He was only 53. He died on his yacht. He had suffered with chronic illness prior to his death. But we had 17 happy years of married life. Then the estate and the title then passed on to the Honorary Otway Cuffe, and he became the 5th Earl of Desart. He continued to live out in Cheesetown, and he was referred to as the captain from his days in the British Army. He wasn't long in establishing social and personal contacts both in the city and in the county. The ideals of the Gaelic League, such as fostering local industry, appealed to Ottawa. He became president of the Gaelic League in 1904, and he held this position until 1912 when he died. He liked to dress in the old Irish garb. I was very interested myself in reviving the local industry and to give needed employment to Kilkenny City, because at this time there was a huge amount of poverty in the city. Captain Cuffe was asked to let his name go forward to the local elections in 1906. He agreed, but on the conditions that he would not canvass. He declared, if the people want to elect me, they can elect me of their own free will. But if elected, I will do my very best for the citizens of Kilkenny. I was delighted Ottawa was elected. He was carried shoulder high through the streets of Kilkenny. Bonfires were lit all over the city. He was also elected mayor in 1907 and again in 1908. Now, out in Talbots Inch on the opposite bank of the River Nore lay the ruins of an old mill. It was said that this mill was one of Ireland's best known woolen mills. When the woolen industry failed, the mill was used for making starch. This also failed. So in 1904, I encouraged Ottawa to purchase the derelict mill and the adjoining lands. Greenvale Woolen Mills is what we called it. Easter Monday, 1906, a large crowd gathered for the official opening of the woolen mills. After lunch, we were driven out to the mills over the picturesque John's Bridge. This bridge was erected by the 2nd Earl of Desart, Captain Cuffe's grandfather. The Cheesetown Fife and Drum Band, they played rousing music following the speeches. All the clergy that were there on the day, they each got a present of a travel rug that was made in the woolen mills. I dropped over to the woolen mills every day myself to keep an eye on the girls. I was very interested in their health and welfare. So instead of them standing at the machines, I organised high stools that they could sit down. Also, years ago, the girls had the long hair, and I thought this could be very dangerous while they were working with the machines. So I organised nets and hairpins And each year I brought them on a trip to Tramore, which they loved. In 1910, two events happened. The first event was the opening of the Carnegie Library in Johns Quay. The Carnegie Trust helped with the funding. They gave £2,000. I suggested I would furnish it. That's what I did. The shelving and the chairs and everything else were made by the Kilkenny Woodworkers. On that day, I was presented with a beautiful inscribed key in the shape of a horseshoe. The city arms were displayed on one side, and the key was made down in P.T. Murphy Jewellers High Street. Later that evening, I was conferred with the freedom of the city. Such an honour to be the first woman in an Irish city and the first Jewish lady in the world to receive this honour. Captain Cuffe's sudden and unexpected death in 1912 came as a great shock to me, to his relatives and to the people of Kilkenny. He died on a voyage to Australia at Fremantle. He was actually interred over there. I'm remembering here tonight Otto's great achievements. He had a social club out in Sheestown and started a similar one in Patrick Street. He acquired a room, hired a drill sergeant and installed equipment. He named it the Kilkenny Social and Gymnastics Club. Otway, though, had more ambitious plans. He extended the building, making it a suitable venue for staging plays, concerts, dances and a theatre. It had its own electricity plant and was capable of seating between 800 and 900 people. I was happy to pay the full cost of this project. It opened in 1902 and it was called the Empire Theatre. Now, the local branch of the Gaelic League, led by Otway, called on the corporation to make arrangements to have a proper feast day on the 17th March for our national saint, St. Patrick. Up to then, in 1902, St. Patrick's Day fell on the Sunday after St. Patrick's Day. But in 1903, the festival was celebrated on the actual feast day, the 17th of March. All public houses agreed to close down for the day. Yeah, anyway, we'll say nothing. On St. Patrick's Night 1903, the Gymnastics Club had a massive contest for a silver challenge belt. I was delighted to present the gold medal to the winner, and Otway presented the silver medal. The evening's entertainment concluded with a selection of reels and jigs, and a quarter of the profits were given to the Gaelic League. Around this time, I bought a 90-acre farm at Talbots Inch. Here I had 30 houses built for the managers and the workers. It was Otway's influence that guided William A. Scott, a Celtic revival architect, in his designs of these houses. So between him, skilled tilers from Devon and Cornwall and local builders, these beautiful thatched roof and limestone cottages were built. It was known as the Garden Village. I loved this woodland place out here and decided to have my own residence built out there. Aut Even is what I called it, derived from the Gaelic word meaning Aut Even, a beautiful place. I had a pleasure walk constructed along the west bank of the Nore and all the way up to my house. I enjoyed planting exotic plants and many varieties of trees. The bamboo cane grew in abundance. Many plays were performed out there on the banks of the Nore down at Bishop's Meadows. My friend Standish O'Grady, he was the editor of the Moderator newspaper. He produced many of those wonderful plays. For the benefit of the workers, I had a bridge installed over the Nore to the village, over to the Woolen mills. It was known as the suspension footbridge. Another enterprise got underway in 1905. A woodworkers' guild was formed by a group of young men from the newly opened vocational school. They had little capital and their premises was very small. Otto was approached for help. After discussing this with me, we purchased a premises on Lower Patrick Street. Soon afterwards, the woodworkers moved out to the larger factory in Talbots Inch. We installed the most up-to-date machinery. It was known as the Kilkenny Woodworkers Limited. In 1906, the shop was opened in Nassau Street in Dublin for the sale of the finer pieces of furniture. And a bone china tag 024 dainty in Earl was stamped on the more expensive pieces. Later, the shop moved to 66 Grafton Street in Dublin. They also opened a showroom in Irishtown in Kilkenny. The woodwork factory almost closed down in 1920 due to friction between management and the workers. A fire destroyed the factory in 1927. A successful hosiery factory set up here in the late 1920s. Some examples of the furniture that was made in the woodwork factory: the beautiful carved main doors with the lovely Celtic design out in Aut Even Hospital, the old Aut Even. Bookcases in St. Kieran's College. The shop front of P.T. Murphy Jewellers down in High Street. The shop front of the China Hall, High Street, Michael F. Murphy's. In 1903, 3 acres of land in Talbotsinch was set aside for experimental cultivation of the tobacco crop. It wasn't a success. The first crop, valued at £1,000, was lost due to a fire in the drying sheds. It was never intended as a money-making enterprise. I must say I was terribly disappointed that no interest whatsoever was shown in this project, from the largest landlord to the smallest farmer. Alas, the tobacco factory, as they say, went up in a puff of smoke. Now, the farm out in Talbots Inch had very rich quality land. I put a lot of cattle out there and was president of the Shorthorns Breeders Association. It was my honour each year to present the Perpetual Challenge Cup to the best show in the cattle category. The inscribed cup was solid silver and was valued at £150, and it was known as the Desart Cup. The people of Talbotsinch were not short of entertainment. I had a spacious recreational hall built and a concert hall that could accommodate up to 200 people. There was also facilities for playing cricket and tennis, and a 9-hole golf course and a billiards hall. The cricket team played their first match in 1908 against the Kilkenny Castle team, but they were defeated. I also had a little private school and dental surgery built in Talbotsinch just for the convenience of the younger residents out there. High praise was given to the many crafts, needlework, etc. and crochet that was made in St. Joseph's Industrial School on the Waterford Road. I got them exhibited in the Irish Textile Exhibition in Dublin and in Glasgow. I felt it gave the girls a possibility of work in the future and boosted their mental well-being as well. Following Ottawa's death in 1912, I was made president of the Gaelic League. Its headquarters was in Rothe House. My yearly subscription helped greatly. I purchased a gramophone, a violin and uilleann pipes for the Gaelic League. I was pleased to present the winners at the feis with silver watches. In 1914, it was my utmost pleasure to set up the Kells pipe band. Along with sending them out a bandmaster and a drummer, I purchased drums, pipes, material to make uniforms, kilt pins and brooches. It gave me great pleasure in 1931 when the band played in Croke Park for the All-Ireland hurling final between Cork and Kilkenny. It was a draw. The replay was also a draw. And in the second replay, I'm afraid Cork won. Also in 1914, I had a recreational hall built in Lower New Street known as Desart Hall. There was a need for a social venue in the city. It contained a ballroom with a stage, dining room, kitchen and a cloakroom. Many a marriage came from romances started in the Desart Hall. It was Kilkenny's ballroom of romance. Otway had suggested previously about building a hospital out in Talbots Inch. I decided to proceed with this project and dedicate it to the memory of Otway. Aut Even Hospital opened in 1915. It was equipped with the most up-to-date theatre and X-ray room. A good deal of the furniture was made in the woodwork factory. During World War I, the hospital was used as a military hospital, reverting back to civilian use after the war, as a convalescent home for the injured soldiers. 2 other ladies and myself ran the Red Cross from here during the war. Dr. Charles Drennan was the doctor at Aut Even. He lived just beside the hospital, the house I had built for him. He was also the medical doctor for the city and the county. In 1922, I was nominated by the Taoiseach, William T. Cosgrave, to the Senate. I made a number of contributions to the Senate debates over my 12 years. Thus, I became the innocent cause of my previous beautiful house out in Desart Court to be burned to the ground in 1923. It grieved me to hear all the heirlooms and valuables were destroyed. Sadly, it was one of the many stately homes to be burned to the ground around this time. In 1926, I donated a site in Talbots Inch for a handball court. Originally, it was a 3-walled court. I happily gave a generous loan to the club. The members, by voluntary labour, helped build the court. In 1928, it was the only one in the country that was roofed. A simple form of agreement was drawn up between us. This was known as the Deed of Good Faith. Talbots Inch Handball Club produced many champions. It was officially opened by President William Cosgrave in 1928. The Handball Challenge Cup is a replica of the Ardagh Chalice. I attended many meetings and handball games out there. So thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your interest in listening to some of my stories tonight. Stories from my years in Kilkenny, where I was welcomed as one of their own. No, that's at the graveyard. I'm back in Kilkenny now. Now, the funeral of Ellen Odette Cuffe, the Countess. Ellen moved from Kilkenny to number 1 Waterloo Road, Dublin, in her last couple of years. She died on the 29th of June 1933, so 90 years this year. Her funeral took place on the 2nd of July. On the day of her funeral, Kilkenny City, the chimes of the bells in St. Canice's Cathedral rang out. The tricolour flew at half-mast at the City Hall. Her coffin was taken by motor hearse to the boat in Dunleary. From here, she was taken to Holyhead, and then on to Falmouth Cemetery in Cornwall for burial. 12 men from the Kilkenny Woodworkers carried the coffin to the boat, the Scotia. A busload of ladies from the social club in Talbots Inch were there to show their respect on the pier. Also from Kilkenny were the Girl Guides, respectively forming a guard of honour. The funeral, at her own request, was according to the Jewish rites. Very Reverend Dean Fair from Kilkenny officiated. The grave was lined with roses, sweet peas, ferns and moss. Her coffin was very plain, her wish and the custom of the Jewish religion. She had visited her husband's grave yearly for almost 35 years. A statue of a weeping widow with a harp rests on her grave. And on the headstone it reads as follows: "They were together in their lives, and in their deaths they shall not be divided." This was a Jewish lady, a countess, linked by a desire to benefit the community of Kilkenny. The countess is little remembered in Kilkenny. Without exaggeration, she did more for the community in 20 years than any acts that were ever passed or achieved. And there's just some reminders of Lady Desart around Kilkenny today. For instance, there's a marble plaque in memory of Otway Cuffe inside the main door of the original Aut Even Hospital. A portrait of the young Ellen Odette Cuffe in the new Aut Even Hospital. Also a portrait of Lady Desart in the reception area, Ballykeefe Distillery. It was a coach house in the former Desart estate. In 2014, a pedestrian and cycle bridge was officially opened in the city. The bridge links the Carnegie Library side to the Market Yard side. It is appropriately called the Lady Desart Pedestrian and Cycle Bridge. It is a very fitting name, as the suspension bridge that she had constructed was swept away in the flood of 1947. A small plaque over the right-hand side of the window in Murphy's Jewellers in High Street. On it said, the Kilkenny Woodworkers, Kilkenny. Also, the shop front of the China Hall in High Street was also made in the woodwork factory. It was dismantled in 1969 and stored in the National Museum. The entire woodwork, including a grandfather clock in Lady Desart's house, Aut Even, now belonging to the Duggan family. The letters ED, Ellen Desart, 1906, on the main entrance gate to Villa Maria. The Mercy Sisters reside there now, and there's also a bereavement centre out there. Talbots Inch Handball Alley is still vibrant almost 100 years later. There was 102 senior All-Ireland medals won by members. John Joe Gilmartin and Michael Duxie Welch amongst the greatest. And the medal count above 102 does not include other grades in handball. Talbots Inch village itself is a constant reminder of this wonderful lady. The old theatre in Patrick Street is now Zuni Restaurant and Boutique Hotel. In the Mayor's Parlour, City Hall, a clock can be seen made in the woodwork factory. My own little piece, a Bible rack with bow and china tag on it. I was honoured to be asked to take the part of Lady Desart as a Grand Marshal in the St. Patrick's Day Parade 2014. The very popular Lady Desart Choir was formed in 2017. One of the boats being used on the boat trips on the Nore is called Lady Desart. For my talk tonight, I sourced material from the Old Kilkenny Review, books from the library, Rothe House, articles from local newspapers and local history books. I want to thank Paddy Nari for his encouragement and for his help. And the Saturday walkers, we don't forget Lady Desart. We regularly go out to Talbots Inch and we're always mentioning Lady Desart as we go around. My deepest gratitude to Mr. Michael O'Dwyer for letting me use some of his wonderful photos from one of his publications, Lady Desart, Otway Cuffe and Talbots Inch 2020. I want to thank my daughter Emma for doing the photos because I haven't a clue of technology, and for Cuive that's looked after the photos there tonight, and she did all my typing. Thank you.